And welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show as we change the pace up a little bit from the Christie situation. And joining us now is Eliana Johnson, and she is the media editor for the National Review. Hello, Eliana. How are you?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
Good to talk to you. Okay, so if we're going to talk here about Rachel's show, Rachel Maddow, we're not just talking about, which was the title of your much talked about column earlier in the week. We're talking about Rachel Maddow's kind of network, in effect, because you write that she's known as the queen over there, and that she may be calling the shots.
That's right. She has an enormous influence at Msnbc for two reasons. The first is that the Msnbc president, Phil Griffin, he's not a great manager, and he struggled, to manage the talent there. I think you can see that in the spate of impolitic remarks that have come from the mouths of several of their hosts in recent months. And also because Phil Griffin is not ideological, and so Rachel's ideology has really filled that void. And Phil has said publicly that Rachel is their quarterback and that he is, really seeking to remake the network in her image. And so when you have somebody who's not ideological and you work in television, talent is a huge part of that. And so she's having influence over the talent that the network retains and, the shows that are going on the air. So her influence is huge.
Well, you could see that looking at it from that angle with that bit of information. It all starts to make sense. Now, she has denied this. She says it's not true. You also revealed that the network now has a script reader who approves all scripts before all shows because of the the embarrassments that have taken place. I mean, to me, most of the shows are an embarrassment on a daily basis, but the embarrassments for which they've needed to apologize for, including Martin Bashir, most recently Melissa Harris Perry, Alec Baldwin, and so on.
Right, and it's funny what the network has said, in the wake of my piece. They've really put themselves in a curious position because they've said, no, our editorial process hasn't changed at all. We don't have, we had an executive reviewing scripts before these statements, and we've had an executive reviewing scripts after these statements. So they're saying we haven't changed anything. That's weird because Bashir's remarks were scripted, and so they're saying, yeah, we had an executive sign off on them, and that executive is still employed by MSNBC, and we haven't changed anything, any part of our process, which seems journalistically irresponsible. I know that not to be the case, from well-placed sources. I don't think they're being candid about the changes that they've made in the wake of that. But I find their response curious. I think what they don't want to admit really is that there wasn't executive overview of Bashir's script, which I don't actually think is that big of a deal. But they really don't want to admit that they have made changes in the wake of these problems.
We're talking to Eliana Johnson, media editor for the National Review, here on the Steve Malzberg Show about the, who's running MSNBC? Is it Phil Griffin or is it Rachel Maddow? And you point out in the piece that, Rachel was instrumental in getting the Chris Hayes, for instance, on board. And I've commented in the past, I do a weekly media segment with Noel Shepard of newsbusters.org, and I've commented, we both have, how, Hayes and some of the others, in addition to being radical left-wingers, him in particular just appears to, I know he's married and all that, but he just appears to be very nerdy, you know what I mean? And it's kind of the nerdy policy wonk, left-wing, the hardcore liberals that seem to be infiltrating over there in addition to the Al Sharptons of the world.
Right. Well, you can see the difference between the proteges of Rachel Maddow, that's, Chris Hayes, Melissa Harris Perry, Alex Wagner. They are more intellectual, they're wonkier, as opposed to the more populist Democrats like Chris Matthews, Al Sharpton, Martin Bashir. That's the style that she is cultivating among MSNBC talent. And I think the problem that you're going to see MSNBC grapple with over the coming year is that aside from Rachel herself, her show does rate, the rest of them don't really rate. And the loudmouth populists just seem to resonate with MSNBC's audience more. Shows like Sharpton's show and Matthews' show, those shows tend to rate higher than the shows of Maddow's proteges.
And so where do you think, I mean, with the ratings information that you included in your column, and, where do you think this network is headed? Where do you think Phil Griffin is headed? And again, this is MSNBC. Which used to mean something as far as the NBC part of that. Now, of course, you have Andrea Mitchell, who couldn't be more left-wing in her show on MSNBC, and she's a, NBC News chief correspondent on Brian Williams News. You got Chuck Todd, also very left-wing on his MSNBC show, White House correspondent, NBC News. There's a very blurry line there, and, they even now bring on Al Sharpton from MSNBC to be a panelist on Meet the Press.
Right. Well, I think what you're going to see happen is the network really grappling over the next year with what it wants to be. Does it want to continue to go in the direction of Maddow and her proteges, or will they take a more serious look at their ratings and what resonates? And I think a lot of that will have to do with whether Phil Griffin stays or goes.
Yeah. No, it's going to be very, very interesting. All right, Eliana, thank you. Good work, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Take care. Eliana Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, the media editor for the National Review here on the Steve Malzberg Show. I mean, it is unwatchable. Who was it? Oh, a friend of mine said to me, it seems like you watch a lot of CNN. I got to convert you into suffering along with me and watching more of MSNBC. I can't take MSNBC. Last night I watched CNN, Anderson Cooper's 10 o'clock Eastern show, with Jeffrey Toobin trying to explain why you killed the baby in the body of the Texas woman who's been declared brain dead, how it's grotesque. It's the invasion of the body snatchers to keep the woman alive to save the baby. These people are out of their minds, and they think that they're mainstream. They think that they're and Mark Garagos went along with him. Of all, Sunny, whatever her name is, the legal correspondent for CNN, she was defending keeping the baby alive. Well, it's all nuts. Anyway, we're going to come back. Ari Fleischer will join us right here, former White House spokesman. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.